All right, what's going on, everyone? Today I wanted to take the opportunity to have a conversation about Frankie and just everything that's going on right now with his relationship with Vegapunk and Egghead Island. Very casual video compared to what I usually do. It's kind of raining right now. Well, actually, there's a flood watch right now. So I figured I'd take the time to just kind of talk about this because it's something that's been on my mind a lot. Um, and I know that for a lot of Frankie fans, this has probably been something that's been on their mind as well. So it's just something I wanted to kind of talk about. But basically, ever since the time skip, right, where we see Frankie is, I guess studying or training at Bulgamore, the future land of Bulgamore, Karakuri Island. This is where Vegapunk was from, right? He inhabited this island for a long time. I think he grew up here, and he made a lot of his early inventions and stuff here. He left them there, and Frankie incorporated a lot of that into his post time skip design with his weapons. And it kind of was a big deal about making Frankie who he is, studying under one of literally the greatest mind in the One Piece verse. So everybody thought naturally, okay, well, Vegapunk is going to become a character that we meet up with eventually. And everyone, especially Frankie fans, was super excited to see how that interaction would go with Frankie and Vegapunk. And naturally, you would assume that once we get to the Vegapunk arc, quote unquote, which we're in now, that Frankie would have a, larger than normal narrative importance. Similar to something like Usopp is expected to have in Elbaf. Now, did Zoro have, more than higher than average plot importance in Wano? No, not at all. But he did get some other things, which I'm going to touch on. So here we are in Egghead. It's seemingly the final chapter, maybe like one or two more chapters. But the overarching plot, the central plot of Egghead seems to be wrapping up. And Frankie, I don't want to say he was like sidebarred, but he was frozen for a lot of it. And even when he was unfrozen, he didn't really have a crazy role to play, which we thought he would. He had some conversations with Vegapunk. Vegapunk acknowledged, how good Frankie was as like an engineer and a scientist and stuff like that. So that was cool. But, we wanted him to play like a more significant role to the plot, and that didn't happen. So now it kind of shifted to, like, okay, well, if we're at least not going to get that, well, let's at least go the Zoro route for Wano, where Frankie gets like a really cool power up. Because Zoro didn't have a big importance to the plot, directly, tying to his lineage in Wano, the Shimosuskis, and stuff like that. But he did get Emma, which is like one of the prized swords of the Kazuki family and Wano as a whole. Not more than Shusui, but it is what it is. He gets Conqueror's Haki, Advanced Conqueror's Haki, all this cool stuff that makes it feel worthwhile. Like, Zoro, Wano, he's getting all this cool stuff. He's leveling up as a swordsman. It is what it is. So if you're like, all right, let's get that with Frankie. This is the arc that Frankie would definitely love to take some of this technology and incorporate it into his arsenal. It's got to happen. And again, we are at the seemingly end of the Egghead arc, and we have no sign of that at all. So I kind of just wanted to address some things because I feel like it's not over. I still think there is a very strong chance that Frankie could be getting a power up at the very, very, very end of the Egghead Island arc, and here's why. So the way he typically introduces power-ups into the story, it's usually either directly in the middle of a fight or it's at the end of an arc. There are some caveats, like this doesn't apply to every single power-up introduced in the story, but think about it. Every time Luffy has used a new gear, it's been in the middle of a fight. Every time Zoro has used Ashura or, some type of insane ability that he has, whatever it may be, it's happened in a fight. Anytime Sanji's gotten a new Janbei, it's been in the middle of a fight, right? Or you look at it the other way. Sanji got the raid suit at the end of an arc. Me, as a Sanji fan, I was really upset that we were leaving out of Whole Cake Island. Sanji didn't get like an increased Diable Jambe, something, Future Sight, something crazy. But he ended up getting the raid suit at the very last chapter of Whole Cake. Nami with the Sorcerer's Climb Attack, she got that at the very end of Zoe, and she got Zeus at the very end of Whole Cake as well. So you see how he typically, if it's not going to be in the middle of a fight, which Franky didn't really get to do in Egghead because it just wasn't that kind of an arc, we're going with the end of an arc. We'll get to that in a little bit, right? So it's like, all right, we're looking at Franky getting these power-ups. What are the options? Okay, so there have been a lot of things, with it being the land of the future, Egghead, it's like the most scientific place on Earth. In this arc and the surrounding arcs, a lot of things that we've seen that would fit oddly well into Franky's arsenal. So first we're going to go outside of Egghead and we're going to look at in Wano. So Queen actually, with his black coffee beam, which is like, kind of similar to the lasers that we see pacifistas use and similar to the radical beam, he can fire them pretty efficiently. He can fire more than one beam at a time, and he can fire them over and over. Like, he can rapid fire do them. And I think this came from Tekking, actually, who suggested that this would be something cool that Franky can do. He's like a really big Franky fan, and that was a great idea that he had. And I think that would be awesome. It makes a lot of sense. Radical Beam has been a very strong move since the time skip, but it would be nice to see it get an upgrade. And I don't think that that's super broken, because he still has the cola reserves. He still has to be efficient with how many times he uses it and whatnot. So I think that would be a really cool thing for him to have. After that, we have the Pacifista's bubble shields. So I was looking into the bubble shields. I actually thought that they were a lot more powerful than I thought they were. Like, for some reason, I remember them being similar to like Sea Stone. like if a Devil Fruit user were to touch them, they get weak. I don't know what story I was reading. I might have been reading Two Piece for that portion. But I think they're just really strong, like bubble shields that like the new model Mark III pacifistas can use. I still think that those would be really cool. And again, I think this came from I think this pretty much came from a Tekking video, is where like a lot of these ideas came from Tekking. Because he's a Franky fan, and, it's nice. He's a very imaginative and creative person, and I think it was cool of him to put those things together. So yeah, I think Franky having the bubble shields would be great. Franky is a very offensive dude. He doesn't really have any like defensive techniques, so I think having the bubble shield, which is described by, I think, some Marines on the island, call it like the ultimate defense or something along those lines. And I think it would be dope if Franky had something like that. Especially if he's a strong dude, but he doesn't have hockey, and that's another thing we're gonna touch on later. So, I mean, maybe he could try to figure out a way to incorporate the essence of Sea Stone. I could have sworn I saw that somewhere, but I guess it's just a regular bubble shield. But yeah, I think that'll be really cool for him to have. And next up is probably the most like hype one, like for most people. And this is coming from the Hidden Island. He did a really good video on this. I highly recommend you go watch it if you haven't already. But he thinks that it's possible for Franky to acquire the green blood, the invention that Vegapunk created to, use the abilities of devil fruits without having to actually eat the devil fruit itself. This thing we see the Seraphims do. And I love that idea. I love that idea a lot. I think it would fit really well with Franky and him being able to incorporate that. I do think there's a few things that might prevent it from happening. Number one, I feel like it could be a little broken if he could just constantly swap between all these different devil fruits. Now, naturally, it would probably only be the devil fruits that we saw the Seraphim use. So, like, S-Shark had the Swim fruit. S-Bear, I believe, had the Paw fruit. S-Hawk had the Dice fruit. S-Snake had the Marrow fruit. And were those the only ones we saw? There might have been like one more. I think that might be it. So he would have those that he could use. And, the Marrow fruit really might not be that that useful for him, but the other ones absolutely. But I think if you stick to just the swim fruit, I think it'll be fine. It would be a nice callback to Senior Pink and the relationship that they had together. And yeah, I don't really have a problem with it at that point. You'd probably have to, minimize how long he could use the abilities for or something like that. But the second reason as to why I don't know if it is really possible, because I feel like it kind of takes away from the uniqueness of the Seraphim. Like, I know they're kind of taking away from the uniqueness of the Warlords, but that's kind of like their whole point. And I don't know, Franky taking away from that even more might be something Oda wouldn't really consider. Um, and then, there's some other smaller things here and there, but those are like the main power ups that are kind of on the table for a lot of people's minds. Like, there's the photon gloves, there's like the jet boots things that Vegapunk created. And then he could upgrade Frankie Shogun. He could like not have any base upgrades, and he could opt to just do like a Frankie Shogun Mark II, and maybe the Mark II has all the upgrades that we just talked about. Like, okay, base Frankie is more or less the same, but it's the Frankie Shogun that gets a buff, and it's like all those other things. Like, it's like more on par with like what the Mark III and the Seraphim can do. He kind of combines it into one. Who knows? I hope it's something. I hope it's something. Because Frankie's arsenal hasn't really changed a whole lot since the time skip. It's a little. Basically, I'm getting to why I think Frankie needs a power up. The Straw Hats have been getting new moves. It feels like every single arc, and Frankie's been working with the same stuff since Fishman Island. Now, Chopper hasn't really gotten anything new. I mean, he at least did get like a longer duration of Monster Point during Wano. He at least got that. Usopp has some new pop greens here and there. But especially, the trio that he's constantly compared to, like the middle trio or the strong trio with him, Brook and Robin. Brook's, like, I swear, like, when Brook uses a new ability, it's like an editor just like, hey, Oda, we need Brook to do a new ability here. Can you think of anything? Like, what do you want him to do here? Oh yeah, just have him just do this with his devil fruit. Yeah, that'll be cool. Like, he just thinks of something, has him do it, and it works, and it's like the most broken thing ever. But you never see it again. Like, this man has like violin genjutsus. We'll never see Brook do it ever again. Like, the most broken stuff imaginable. And then Robin doesn't really get too much, but she got a lot during Wano. Like, in that one fight, she showed a lot of improvement with the Hana Hana no Mi. She had the demonial floor, and then she had that other move that she was using against Black Marie right before she finished her off that I can't remember the name of. It was like the larger like almost like Robin was a stand, basically. That's kind of what it was. And then she showed basic use of like Fisherman Karate and Ryu Soken. So Robin's good, right? And I feel like they're kind of leaving him behind in terms of like versatility and like fresh new abilities and stuff. So he needs something. And obviously the Monster Trio is pulling stuff out of their ass like every other fight, so he needs something just to stay fresh and just stay up to date with the rest of the crew. And even just considering the rest of the crew, you have to look out the entire world and like the way Frankie fits in with the rest of the world, kind of on some agenda type stuff. But like, realistically though, the Straw Hats are a Yonko crew now. So that means Luffy is the Yonko, he's the head honcho. Zoro is the first commander, Sanji's the second commander, Jinbei is the third commander. That would make Frankie fourth commander. I know people like fourth commander. Like, yeah, it's technically a thing. Like, there are a bunch of commanders. People only really hype up the first three, but there are some prominent instances of like fourth Yonko commanders, and that's kind of where Frankie is right now. So we want to take a look at. I think there's only like two major ones to really point out. So in Big Mom's crew, it's Snack. So Snack didn't really have any crazy showings. He got like high diffed by Rouge. and got kicked out of the Sweet Generals. So I mean, hey, it is what it is, I guess. I mean, not to say Yaruj is weak, but it's like our first introduction of the dude is like him getting like bodied. So it is what it is. But Franky is pretty much on that level. Like Yaruj, I would expect Yaruj to be on that level of being able to take out a commander, right? Like I always looked at Yaruj. I think pre-time skip, you could make an argument Yaruj is like strongest supernova, to be honest. Like I don't think that that's crazy. I don't think that that's ridiculous to say. And then you have kind of a sleeper pick, Thatch. I think technically Thatch, if you're excluding Ace, because Ace is like a wild card, I don't know where you want to rank Ace within the Whitebeard Pirates. But if you're looking at just Marco, Josie, Vista, I think it makes sense that Thatch would be the next strongest character. And he had an extremely broken Devil Fruit. He had the Yami Yami no Mi before Blackbeard snatched that crap out of his soul. But they snatched that crap out this man's body. Like that's crazy. And then he has hockey too. So you gotta remember that. He has hockey because he taught Ace observation in the Ace side story. So Franky's up against, the guy. Because think about it, Snack can't be that weak. It took Luffy and Nami, by the way, 11 hours to beat Cracker. Snack can't be too far off in terms of like strength and difficulty to beat. He can't be too far off from that. You know what I'm saying? Like the gap between commanders can't be that large. So you're dealing with a dude who's like weaker than Cracker, but still really strong. And then you're dealing with a dude who has the Yami Yami no Mi and he has hockey. Right? These are some strong dudes. So if you're asking like which of these power-ups should Franky get? If you ask me, I say all of them. I don't think any of these on their own are going to make Franky super broken. And I think if he gets all three, it's not going to make him the strongest dude on the planet. Franky still doesn't have hockey. He still doesn't have a Devil Fruit. The combatants that he fights at this point in the series aren't crazy. Like Sasaki's not crazy. He's not the strongest Tobi Roppo. And as the series gets on, these characters are going to get put on higher and higher, like levels of power. So I think this would be the perfect opportunity to just buff Franky up real quick. He deserves it from a narrative perspective and from like a power scaling perspective. Right? I think he definitely deserves it. But yeah, I don't even if the next chapter comes out and he doesn't like, oh, like like he doesn't say anything. He's just like, oh well, I got to meet my idol Vegapunk. He's dead now, but I got these cool blueprints or something like that. I don't know why Franky sounds like that. That's not even close to how Franky sounds, but you get the idea. Even if that doesn't show up in the next chapter, I still don't think it's time to hang in the towel, right? Because you got to remember, Franky has pretty much a photographic memory. He was able to retain the blueprints of the ship that they were going to build to counter Pluton if anyone ever discovered it. And he has that memorized. He burned the blueprints. He has that memorized in his brain. If the day comes that he has to build that, he will be able to do that with no problem. So I think it's possible that maybe he didn't actually take any blueprints or take any actual physical technology with him out of Egghead. But it's possible that he could have been, looking over some of Vegapunk's like schematics or blueprints, and he memorized stuff. And that in a future, maybe in Elbaf, I don't know, maybe he'll have like a fight in Elbaf in like some warrior tournament. And he's like, hey, you know what? I remember seeing this in Vegapunk's lab. This would be really helpful for this fight. Let me build this and incorporate it into my, my weapons system. Because this would make a lot of sense. The power up could come that way. So even if it doesn't come at the very, very end of Egghead, it's something that I think is still possible. But yeah, I mean, how else do people expect Franky to get stronger? You know what I mean? Obviously, he's just gonna get naturally stronger as he goes on. But his power ups have to come in the form of like actual crafted upgrades, you know, because I think right now you could argue Frankie is not even argue. I think he definitely is one of the strongest characters in One Piece without a devil fruit and without hockey. Now I think it's debatable if you'd put him above people like, you know, Ichiji and stuff like that, like the Vince Smokes. Like, I mean, would you like the Vince Smokes family versus a Toby Ropo? Like, who would you have one in that? I'd probably go Toby Ropo. So maybe Frankie's above them. I feel like he probably is. So yeah, Frankie could very well be one of the strongest people on the planet with no devil fruit, no hockey, and this would just further cement that for him. And I think Frankie deserves this, especially since he kind of got snubbed from a narrative perspective in the arc. I think that this would just be a really nice touch. And just dude, think about how cool it would be if Frankie had the swim fruit. Like, dude could be like a stealth tank. He's just swimming around in some mud or something. Well, not probably in the actual, like swimming around like cement, like just brick. And then he pops up, shoots a radical beam, goes back down. He's just swimming. Michael Phelps into the concrete, pops back up, shoots again. Just like that. Come on, like you know that would be fire. Pop about the mud, just grab somebody, suplex, like just doing like real Senor Pink type stuff. Like yo, like that would be crazy. I don't know about all that. I think that would be crazy, but I think that pretty much wraps it up. Like I said, very casual discussion video for today. I do have a much bigger video that I've been working on for quite some time now. This is just something I wanted to add in, just to pop in and just to have a conversation going. But yeah, let me know what you guys think, and like and subscribe, like the conversation, and comment below if you think Frankie deserves this power up. All right, I'll talk to you guys later. Peace.